Beyond the Gates spoilers for Friday, August 1st, tease that Anita Dupree is in for a shock. As the curtains lift on the long-awaited reboot of The Articulates, with Anita, Tracy Tyler, and Sharon Winger taking center stage, tensions are already simmering beneath the surface. The triumphant return of the group is marked by palpable unease, especially from Anita, who seems distracted even as the crowd roars in anticipation. Tracy, ever the perfectionist, insists everything run according to schedule, while Sharon takes a more relaxed but sharp-witted approach. All three women smile for the cameras, but behind their eyes lies a minefield of unresolved conflict. In the opening number, Anita fumbles a note, a rare misstep that doesn't go unnoticed by Sharon, who mutters a comment under her breath. Tracy's glare could cut glass, and Anita's jaw tightens, clearly trying to keep her composure. The tension explodes backstage, where a whispered argument between Anita and Sharon nearly derails the evening before it begins. Tracy tries to mediate, but her own patience is wearing thin. The trio barely makes it back on stage for their second number when someone unexpected steps into the wings. Anita catches sight of the figure and freezes. Her face drains of color. It's not just shock, it's recognition. Her mouth drops open, and her eyes fixate on the person like she's seen a ghost. Tracy and Sharon continue their act, oblivious to Anita's retreat until she suddenly bolts from the stage mid-performance, leaving a stunned audience and two bewildered co-performers in her wake. Backstage chaos ensues. Sharon demands to know what just happened. Tracy, confused and angry, tries to salvage the moment. Security begins checking for possible intruders, but the one who follows Anita is not a stranger, it's Jim Price. He mistakenly assumes that his arrival is what rattled Anita. Jim, oozing with bravado, tells a stagehand that Anita probably felt intimidated. She knows if it comes to a vocal showdown, I'll hold my own, he boasts, grinning. Hell, I might even outperform her. Jim's attitude reveals a deep-seated rivalry, one that might be professional or possibly personal. He's not just here for the show, wants the spotlight. But his arrogance blinds him to the real issue. Anita wasn't afraid of him. She was terrified of the mystery figure from the wings, someone tied to her past. Vernon, Anita's husband, steps in as a protective force. Calm but firm, he tells staff and performers alike that no one is to approach Anita until she's ready. He knows how close she is to breaking down. Vernon has been her rock through this turbulent reboot and understands more than anyone that Anita is holding in years of trauma, resentment, and unresolved family secrets. But Sharon is not so easily deterred. She waits just long enough to ignore Vernon's warning, then begins digging. She wants answers. Sharon never liked being kept in the dark, and whatever Anita saw, Sharon wants to know why it matters. She quietly reaches out to her industry contacts, looking for clues about who showed up unannounced. Meanwhile, Nicole and Danny are watching everything unfold like seasoned chess players. They've seen the fractures forming in the trio and realize that without intervention, the Articulates reunion is doomed. Danny, always the strategist, hatches a plan. Nicole backs her fully. They decide to engineer a moment of unity not by confronting the issues head-on, but by manipulating events to remind Anita, Sharon, and Tracy why they formed the group in the first place. Their plan begins with the bigger picture approach. Nicole suggests organizing a private dinner disguised as a rehearsal debrief. They plant the idea that this will be a safe space for the trio to talk off record, away from cameras, expectations, and egos. Danny's angle involves the family. She wants to use family presence to soften the edges and bring a sense of shared legacy into the mix. To do that, they need to get the holdouts on board. Martin Richardson and Bradley "Smitty" Smith, both pivotal figures in Anita's extended family history, are skeptical. They've seen the headlines. They know the drama. Both men have their reasons for wanting to stay away, though very different ones. Martin, ever the stoic, doesn't want to be seen as a distraction or a relic of a time better forgotten. Smitty, on the other hand, is tired of the politics and tired of being dragged into emotional landmines. Tyrell, Smitty's grandson, and one of the few people capable of swaying either man, is conflicted. He wants to support Anita, but he also fears what this reunion might expose. Secrets have a way of surfacing in families like theirs, and he doesn't want to be caught in the crossfire. Yet Tyrell shares a strong bond with Vernon. The two often talk late into the night about life, legacy, and the power of reconciliation. Vernon, carrying the weight of old choices, uses this bond to open a door. In a quiet conversation with Tyrell, he finally admits that Martin's hesitations aren't just pride, they stem from guilt. Years ago, when Anita needed protection, Martin turned a blind eye. Vernon was complicit in the cover-up. It's something that has haunted him since, and he confesses that bringing Martin back now is as much about healing as it is about support. Tyrell, moved by the raw honesty, agrees to reach out to Smitty and Martin. But he warns Vernon, one wrong move and the whole thing could implode. Elsewhere, Anita is alone in a dressing room, shaking. She clutches a small locket, something she hasn't touched in decades. The person she saw earlier wasn't a figment of her imagination. It was real. And if it's who she thinks it is, everything she believed about her past could be a lie. Her thoughts spiral. Could it be one of her long-lost siblings? A half-brother, perhaps? Or, even worse, someone who knows what really happened to them? She thinks back to a night in 1989, the last time she saw her brother. He was dragged away in chaos, accusations flying, and no one ever spoke of it again. Her mother forbade it. Martin covered for someone, Anita never found out who. Until now. Meanwhile, Jim Price corners Sharon backstage and pitches the idea of a duet. Sharon, surprised, almost laughs in his face. She knows Jim's trying to make himself more relevant, but she also recognizes talent when she sees it. "You want to one-up Anita, don't you?" she asks. Jim doesn't deny it. He shrugs. Someone's got to remind the crowd there's more than one powerhouse on that stage. Jim's bravado aside, Sharon begins to think maybe he could be useful. If Anita's retreating, the show needs momentum. Maybe putting Jim in the spotlight could take the pressure off Anita, buy them time. She doesn't tell Tracy yet. She's planning a few moves of her own. Nicole and Danny hear whispers about Anita's breakdown and decide to accelerate their plan. They approach Vernon and propose bringing the family together for a night of emotional recalibration. Vernon hesitates, unsure if Anita can handle it. But they assure him, this isn't about confrontation. It's about memory, connection, and maybe forgiveness. As the night of the family gathering approaches, Tracy continues to rehearse like nothing happened, but everyone feels the tension. Sharon still hasn't told her about Jim, and Anita hasn't returned any messages. The show is days away, and the trio is splintering fast. Danny, determined to make the gathering work, sends personal invitations to Martin and Smitty, each accompanied by a handwritten note from Tyrell. She figures honesty might cut through where guilt and fear have failed. It's a gamble, but she's banking on the power of legacy. Back in her dressing room, Anita finally opens the locket. Inside is a faded photo and a small strip of fabric blue and silver, the colors of the Articulate's very first tour. She begins to cry, not from fear, but exhaustion. The past is no longer content to stay buried. And now, with everything unraveling, she knows she has a choice: face the truth or let it destroy everything they've rebuilt. As Vernon knocks on her door to tell her about the upcoming family gathering, Anita closes the locket and takes a deep breath. Whatever's coming, she'll have to face it. But not alone. The family gathering takes place under dim, ambient lighting at a converted loft downtown, an intimate venue chosen by Danny to strip away the glitz and bring the focus back to connection. Vernon arrives first with Tyrell, hoping their presence might encourage others to let down their guard. Tyrell appears calm, but he's scanning the room for Smitty and Martin. When the door finally opens and Martin steps in, a wave of silence washes over the space. Martin hasn't been seen publicly in over a decade. His eyes lock with Vernon's. No words. Just a quiet nod, filled with old tension and unspoken remorse. Smitty arrives minutes later, wearing a hoodie and keeping his head low, almost like he regrets coming. Tyrell greets him warmly, but Smitty's eyes betray uncertainty. He leans in to whisper, "I don't know if this is a trap or a peace offering." Nicole, watching from the kitchen, knows this moment is fragile. She gives Danny a look that says, "Let it breathe." Anita shows up late, as expected. She's wearing sunglasses despite the dim lighting, the universal signal of emotional armor. When she walks in and sees Martin, her entire posture stiffens. The room shifts again. "I didn't know he was going to be here," Anita says to no one in particular, then glares at Vernon. "You said this wasn't a confrontation." Vernon takes a careful step forward. "It isn't. It's a chance. For all of us." The evening unfolds in disjointed pockets of conversation. Sharon doesn't show. Tracy texts but doesn't call. It's clear the trio is unraveling and tonight was a last-ditch effort. Danny and Nicole float through the space, guiding conversations, bridging gaps. But the heavy anchor of the past refuses to let anyone drift too far. Martin tries to speak to Anita, but she sidesteps him. Smitty ends up deep in conversation with Vernon about legacy and the price of silence. "You know what the hardest part is?" Smitty says. "Watching the next generation carry weight we never intended for them." Tyrell listens in and later pulls Martin aside. "If you want redemption, start by owning it. Don't wait for permission. Don't expect applause. Just do it." Martin nods. Later that night, he leaves a letter tucked in Anita's purse. Not an apology. A confession. The next morning, Anita reads it in her hotel room. Martin admits he was the one who lied about their brother's disappearance. He says he did it to protect their mother, who was trying to cover for someone else entirely. "We thought it would pass. We thought you were too young to remember. But you never forgot. And I never forgave myself." The admission stings more than Anita expected. It isn't closure, but it cracks something open. That same day, Sharon calls. She knows about the gathering and demands answers. Anita, drained, doesn't hold back. She tells her everything, about the locket, the figure backstage, the years of silence. Sharon's tone softens. For the first time in weeks, they talk like allies, not adversaries. Sharon ends the call with, "Then let's burn it all down on stage. You, me, and Tracy. One more time. The truth. No masks." Meanwhile, Tracy finally meets with Jim Price. He presents himself as a potential savior of the show, not just to fill in. "Give me one night," he says, "and I'll remind the crowd what this is all about." Tracy hesitates. She knows letting Jim on stage could destabilize the fragile piece they're trying to build. But she also knows the audience expects more than nostalgia. They want fire. Drama. Truth. So she gives Jim one condition: you open, but you don't overshadow. This is still our show. Jim agrees, but his smirk tells a different story. Nicole and Danny are rebuilding the final concert like it's a chessboard. They plan to blend musical numbers with monologue-style storytelling, each woman speaking her truth before launching into song. It's risky. It could be brilliant or a train wreck. But they believe the audience will respond to authenticity. Anita, after days of silence, finally texts Sharon and Tracy, "I'm in. But I'm not performing for them. I'm doing it for us." Rehearsals are tense but productive. The trio meets late at night in a small studio across town. They sing, argue, cry. Tracy breaks down once, shouting, "Why did we wait this long?" Anita doesn't answer. She just hugs her. The night of the show arrives. The venue is sold out. Cameras are rolling. Fans are screaming. But backstage, it's quiet. Focused. Jim warms up alone, humming scales, pacing. Sharon adjusts her mic pack. Tracy checks the lighting cues. Anita stands in front of the mirror, clutching the locket, then slowly places it around her neck. Vernon stands guard near the hallway, arms folded. Tyrell arrives with Smitty, both looking more hopeful than before. Martin stands at the back, out of sight, but present. Nicole and Danny are in the tech booth, watching every second. Jim opens with a powerhouse solo, all fire and bravado. The crowd eats it up. Sharon follows with a spoken-word intro to one of their earliest songs. Tracy brings the crowd to tears with a ballad, her voice cracked but beautiful. Then Anita steps on stage. The crowd goes still. She speaks first. Not scripted. This stage isn't just wood and lights. It's memory. It's grief. It's forgiveness. And tonight, it's ours again. She sings and it's raw. Imperfect. But real. Every note carries weight. Mid-song, Sharon and Tracy join her. Three voices, fractured but united. They don't hit every harmony. They don't need to. The show ends with the crowd on their feet. Not cheering a flawless performance, but honoring a fearless one. Backstage, Jim claps slowly. I'll admit it. That wasn't bad. Anita laughs. It wasn't for you. As the crew packs up, Vernon pulls Anita aside. You did what none of us could do. You faced it. She looks at him, tired but lighter. It's not done. But it started. Later that night, Martin knocks on her dressing room door. She doesn't open it. But she says through the door, we talk tomorrow. Not as siblings. As two people trying to do better. Down the hall, Sharon and Tracy are already making plans. Not for another tour, but a small acoustic album. No labels. No industry politics. Just stories. Just truth. Nicole and Danny sit together at the far end of the hall, watching everyone drift into quiet conversations. Danny nudges Nicole. Think they'll stay together? Nicole shrugs. Doesn't matter. Tonight, they were. The past isn't erased. The wounds aren't healed. But something has shifted. The silence is broken. The music, imperfect as it was, became the thread pulling them back from the edge. And for now, that's enough. The next morning, the theater sits quiet, emptied of last night's roar but still echoing with its residue. The crew arrives early to strike the set, but the energy feels different. Less like cleanup, more like a closing chapter. Anita, dressed down and incognito, slips into the balcony alone. She watches the empty stage, her coffee cooling in her hand. In this silence, she lets herself feel it, the weight lifted, but not gone. Not yet. Danny finds her there. She doesn't sit, just stands beside her. There's an offer on the table, she says. A documentary. Full rights. From the beginning. The group. The family. The truth. You in? Anita doesn't answer right away. Her fingers tighten around the locket. Only if we control the narrative. Completely. She nods. Then let's finally tell the story right. Downstairs, Sharon and Tracy are already in planning mode. Sharon's flipping through song notes, humming under her breath. Tracy has a notebook open, rewriting set lists like muscle memory. There's no pressure. No cameras. Just old habits kicking in, this time without bitterness. For the first time, it feels like a beginning instead of a return. Martin shows up later with a stack of envelopes. Personal letters written overnight to each person involved. No explanations. Just his truth. He hands Vernon his last. You kept it together when none of us could, Martin says. Don't think I didn't see that. Vernon takes it unread. I was just trying to make sure Anita didn't carry it alone. None of us should have. That ends now. Tyrell, always the observer, now finds himself in a new role. He speaks to a local radio station the next day, not as a grandchild of legends, but as a new voice in the lineage. This wasn't just a concert, he says. It was a reckoning. Jim Price, despite all his bravado, surprises everyone. He posts a video online praising Anita's performance, calling it raw and righteous. He adds, I came to compete, but left a fan again. Some stages aren't battlegrounds, theory confessions. The video goes viral. The public, who only ever knew fragments of the articulate story, is now hungry for the whole truth. Nicole schedules the first meeting with the documentary crew. The pitch is simple, no filters, no rewrites. Just the raw archive home footage, journal entries, demo tapes, backstage meltdowns. She tells them, this isn't about nostalgia. It's about survival. Filming begins quietly. The women aren't playing characters anymore. They're reclaiming themselves. Anita sits in front of the camera for her first interview, a single spotlight washing over her face. I used to think survival was about escaping your past, she says. Now I know it's about walking through it without flinching. 1 month later, the first cut of the trailer premieres online. It shows the trio rehearsing in shadows, Martin holding an old photo, Vernon staring at the empty stage, Tyrell reading a lyric sheet aloud. The final frame, Anita looking straight into the camera. No music. Just her voice. Here we are. All of it. Take it or leave it. The internet explodes. Critics begin revisiting old coverage, reassessing the group's rise and fall. Younger fans discover the Articulates for the first time. Think pieces flood in on family, fame, and the cost of staying silent. A release date is set. The documentary will premiere at a major festival with all 3 women in attendance. They walk the carpet not as a comeback, but as truth-bearers. In the Q&A afterward, someone asks Anita, "Do you feel vindicated?" She shakes her head. "I feel free. That's better." In the weeks that follow, the calls come in. Offers for tours, interviews, awards. Most are turned down. The trio agrees. No more performing unless it means something. No more reliving the past for applause. Instead, they launch a mentorship program for young women in music, teaching not just craft, but how to survive it all. Sharon handles the creative curriculum. Tracy oversees the logistics. Anita shows up for the real talks, the late-night doubts, the mental spirals, the fears no one admits. Vernon steps back from the chaos. H.E. gardens now. Reads. Occasionally gives quiet advice when asked. Martin visits often, usually unannounced. Their conversations are short, but no longer sharp. Tyrell begins work on a spoken-word album inspired by the entire journey. Smitty produces. The working title, Legacy Revised. The locket remains with Anita, but now she keeps it out in the open, on a nightstand beside her bed. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that memory doesn't have to be a prison. And the theater? It sits quiet again, but now there's a plaque by the entrance. To those who lost their voice and found it again. May your silence never be mistaken for surrender. This time, the story ends not in applause, but in ownership. A reclaimed name. A rebuilt truth. And a future that belongs to no one but them.